I ask for a little forbearance, a little patience from you. I would have thought that I would be in a situation where I have to ask all this, because normally I speak my mind and that's it. But today is a different day. I'll tell you why, so that you know what it's all about. I mean, why I ask for your patience. You know, I wanted to talk on a recent report from Pew report. That was in the January 1st, New Year Day, of the Hindu. I have it here, I mean the graph and all that. I looked up this thing and said, well, this deserves to be commented upon. And then I wanted to have a look at the Oxfam report, which I did. But then to get a handle on the subject, I thought I would need some figures, something which my mind sizes up. Otherwise, I would have to say things from my imagination. So, with this very simple purpose, I went to the NSSO report. The NSSO, National Statistical Survey Office. That is the big guy so far as government statistics are concerned. I say the big guy, I mean that's the kind of the authoritative thing. And when I looked at the report, what I wanted was the number of unemployed in India, the absolute number, and some statistics related to my trying to understand what the Pew report was all about, and also the Oxfam report. Well, I found not so much to my shock or anything like that, because I knew all this was coming. I found there was no clue to any of my questions. There was one thing that I noticed was that a statistical survey office starts off the report with a praise of the current dispensation in fairly ornate language, which was to me totally unnecessary and totally irrelevant for a report which should confine itself to statistics. None of that. But I thought, okay, that's how it is, so it is. So let it be. So when I tried to read the report, I found that it was a jugglery of percentage figures. And again I noticed that they had also fiddled around with the base and the methodology and everything. You know, in statistics, if you really are intent to hide rather than disclose, then of course there are many ways you can do it. They have only to change the base year and the methodology of calculation and all that, put it in some footnote, and then you have the product you want. So that's what it amounted to. I wouldn't want to go on this point. I had no clue. I am therefore now sitting before the camera, trying to talk on something where I really don't have much of a clue. And so what I did was to try and extrapolate some old data and try to get a handle on these figures. This is what I have done. So let it be said that the purpose of all the scribblings that I have done in an old notebook is here. Normally I don't keep all these papers when I talk. But this is one of those days, I suppose, and the subject requires a little bit of getting a handle on. So I have scribbled a few figures and may have to, occasionally have a look at them. Let's start with the Pew report. The Pew report is or shows a graph. The graph shows there what is called the social hostilities index. Get me? Social hostilities index, SHI. Not a big thing because it is a negative thing, in which they had surveyed 198 countries and plotted a kind of histogram, all those things in the graph, to rank various countries on the social hostilities index. And do you know, we got the top rank. In a scale of 0 to 10, we nearly touched 10. The second rank goes to Nigeria, who are far below in rank in terms of the score of 10. They are hovering around a little bit less than 9, closer to 8.5, 8.7. The other countries in the social hostilities index are countries like Libya and so on. This is the thing. Now, this is a well-known international organization, and we can't take it lightly if we are true to ourselves. So I want to know the methodology, and that also is clear, and that is the strife and the social tensions that are there, provoked by a whole lot of social forces. And quite clearly, they were saying about the kind of communal divide which had taken place and is taking place, has taken place during the years of survey. And there was also the government also being responsible for it. It's called the government, GRI, government religious activities or initiatives index. So let's put it very simply, there was a societal problem of a divide, and there was the government contributing to this. This is the manner in which they look at it. So when I thought about this thing, I thought, of course, it is an index of negativity, and the opposite is, of course, social cohesion and social harmony. I understood that these two are absolutely necessary, not merely as a desirable condition for economic development, but they are things that are good in itself, what they call a good in itself, and not a means to an end. It is an end in itself. So I thought that's missing, that is there. India is a big country, and this is what it is. And then I thought that there are also structural matters, structural negatives, structural factors, if you like, which will impact on social harmony and social cohesion. So immediately I looked at the Oxfam report and got the hang of it, of that report, and they were highlighting this severe inequality between the top and the very bottom of India's economic, shall we say, structure? Yes, structure. And let me have a few very brief comments so that you get an idea of what I'm trying to say. These are all not to be reduced in just statistics, because they impinge on humanity, they impinge on the sense of fairness in our society. But these are facts, and these are not incitement or anything like that, like what I said earlier, the social tensions and things like that. They are to a large extent provoked. It's like stoking a fire. But this is what is inbuilt, which is there. It is there already, unless you want to change it by an act of will and policy. The top 10% of our society owns 70% of the wealth of the country. I'm not one for too many statistics, because you miss the point. when you get drowned in statistics, your mind gets clouded. But this is an essential thing to know. So far as the mental picture is concerned, I always believe in some mental pictures to form an idea of what it's all about. You have the top 10%, the new Maharajas, part of the billionaire Raj, to some extent exemplified in some recent events, like those who can afford to have a number of pre-weddings, 5 or 6 of them in various countries, various locations of Europe and the rest, and then get on to the job of the wedding itself. Now, it has been calculated in a very rough sort of way that each of these pre-wedding extravaganzas would cost about something like 1,500 crores to 2,000 crores. So have 5 of them, and you have a pretty good figure of 10 to 12,000 crores. The papers or reports say that this is nothing for those who have spent this kind of money. It constitutes only about 0.4% or 0.5% at most of their total wealth. Any quick, behind the envelope calculation would get you to the kind of wealth you have. Now, not all of our billionaire Rajas are of this kind, but then very close to it. They're inching towards this. They own helicopters, and then they own many houses and things like that. You have an idea of what I am talking about. I'm not talking with contempt about anybody. This is the fact. So all of them are fairly respectable people, honorable men. Okay. Now, the next group of ordinary billionaires, what we could call Sada billionaires. I mean, Sada big billionaires. The crowd, the big Bollywood and a whole lot of other industrialists and people like that, a lot of people. At most, now this big multi-billionaires would constitute only about 5% of the total population, which comes to nothing. We are thinking of a population of about 1,400 million, 1.4 billion. 1,400 billion, that's about 140 crores. Let's stick to one base, 1,400. These people will constitute, the top billionaires will constitute 5%. The next, the emerging top billionaires will be another 10% or something like that. Then there are the very rich people by any means comparable to the very rich people in any of the United States or Europe, and you can give them, say, another 20%. That makes up about 30%, if you like. Then you have what is called the new India, the emerging prosperous India. All kinds of metaphors are given for this the aspiring India, the new India, the new middle class, if you like, but they are moving upwards at the rate of about 700 million is being manufactured, being made in a day. That's the situation. That's the situation. And so, if you think that they constitute a big chunk, give them 50%. With all these things, there are about 20% to 30% to be accounted for. You then say that about 10% you can put it down to BPL and all that. That's a bit high, the figures, that's not it. But then you say, okay, BPL. BPL would mean they are below poverty line. So they're not having it good. It's just about to manage because the government, that is, the people, subsidizes all of the gas cylinder, and the housing, and the rations and the food and everything. So it's not as though they are having a great time. No, they're just being able to manage things somehow or the other. There is no job there, and on the job front, things are very, very bad indeed. If I get the time, I'll come to that. And no jobs, really. So we still have roughly about 10% to be accounted for. Where are they? And then I have to think that they are on the pavements. Not something very shocking, because the government in 2011 census had admitted that there were 1.77 million Indians on the pavements, living on the pavements. They admitted that in 2011. But then after that, for various reasons, leave alone the census, the government has gone a bit silent on various performances. In fact, whatever reports come in, we have reason to believe that they do not publish it, citing various reasons for it. This kind of thing is not something that I have noticed and I am commenting upon. Very important people like Arvind Panagaria and Surjit Balla, all these are part of the planning commission, part of the whole people who knew. They have commented on this also, how these statistics have not been released, etc. So you have a situation where I have to extrapolate. If statistics were available on the absolute number, not exact, even approximate, if it is an authoritative figure of Indians living on the pavements, bring it up to 2024, 2023 or 2022, it would have been okay for me. But I found no figures, and therefore I had only to extrapolate simple arithmetic and so on, and come up with a figure that in 2024, based on the figures of the 2011 census, 23 million Indians, 23 million Indians are living on the pavements. 23 million means, multiply by 10 and you get lakhs, 230 lakhs. Okay. That means about 2.3 crores of Indians. It's a big country. Therefore, these crores and all that wouldn't be a matter of shock. It can be. But there is nothing of a fiction in this. We are building up on the basis of statistics. I remember reading a story, a news report, not recently, quite some time ago. I think it was Frontline or some magazine like that, I don't quite remember, but it was Chennai. And the lady who was speaking said something like this, that she was very, very articulate on the plight of the pavement dwellers. We have been living on the street, on this pavement, for 2 generations, and we are now used to this thing. Our children go to school and a few to college from here. Now, you can only relate when you see and hear these things. You can relate to figures because figures can bamboozle you, and with the solid help of the NSSO, they can really get your mind not working at all, befuddled, confused as I was until a few minutes ago. Now things are clearing up. So I can't be focusing on every sector. I'm focusing on about 23 million people on the pavements. And a very large part of these people would have no identity, no documentation, and therefore no real access to all these subsidized gas cylinders and things like that. Though by some ingenuity they might get a cylinder or two. These are the people under the radar, forgotten in the whole process. I can understand to some extent why, because they are not a vote bank. Having no identity, I wonder whether they even can vote. So they are the forgotten people. So I want to focus on that, not from the point of view of the Pew report, because what the Pew report and other reports will be emphasizing is that when you have a thing like this, it affects the social structure, the social cohesion angle, and that will have an impact on your economic progress and your economic development. I look at it purely from the human point of view, from the human rights point of view. These are human beings there who have a right to live in dignity as human beings. It's as simple as that. This was the main argument of the courts when they interfered with the Asian Games problem, which meant that a lot of these construction workers were found under the bridge and so on, sleeping there and not having any proper accommodation. And the court said, give them proper accommodation in 3 weeks. They are building, they are building the Asian Games village in Delhi. Give them accommodation and treat them as people with dignity. There is no right to life without the right to life with dignity. That's the point. That's the point. So I am also coming to more or less the same thing, not a big invention. I get inspiration from the courts also. So that is one focus that I have today. And the other focus which I wanted but which I was searching for was to just speak on the educated unemployment in this country. And there it is very clear that as it stands now, this is not my invention, it's there, as it stands now, those who are educated from secondary school upwards, they have a much better chance to get some employment. No, those who have much less chance, they are at a disadvantage purely from the point of view of employment. Those who have a secondary education and above, right up the degree, have a much less chance of getting a job than those who are the third standard and the illiterate. In other words, putting the converse thing, the illiterate, those who are barely literate or who are in the third standard, who are left at the school, they are having a chance that is better than the educated youths. So you know what kind of jobs, informal jobs most of it, they would be going into. These people who are, you know, just a little hovering around the third standard or fourth standard schools. And the others, the big thing. You look at the tensions that are being built up. Go to the slightly granular level. Among the educated youths, about 60% are unemployed. Look at the tensions within the family. Look at what's happening, and therefore the tensions within the family, that is the smallest unit in society, it will have another bigger effect on society. What are the tensions? You know. You have spent a good lot of money, your savings, everything, on the sons or daughters' education, upwards. And now you find he is unemployed, he or she is unemployable and has no employment. The situation is pretty clear, you know, that there are no quick fixes. It is a process, and probably it should have been done many years ago. You have to fix the education system. The education system has to be fixed, and everything after that has got to be good quality education. That is the requirement of the modern economy. Only the other day, I was reading that, and it was not new to me at all, because of education sector, some sector with which I'm a little bit familiar. The 8th standard child, 8th standard student is not able to read what is in the 4th standard. That is the level. So I mean, that is just a snapshot of things. If this is the education, and this is the general level of graduates, without the very basic of basic things, then there is not much surprise in their not being employable. It is not an easy subject to deal with, it is much more than that. And really, it is enough to say that education is something that is to be well thought of and planned, so that the quality of education comes up at the level that is required of the modern economy. I would even say to the international levels. Now, all along I believed that it is not the impact on economic factors. Education is a good in itself, and if you are your children are not having good education but poor quality education, it is an injustice in itself, a terrible thing in itself, not its impact, but in itself. So these are some of the things that are there. I can't speak on all sectors. There are plenty of things, plenty of things. Who will remedy this situation? First of all, the policies have to be slowly built up, formulated in discussions, serious discussions, and formulated quickly, because while I was really at a loss to get any statistics, because the manner in which these things have been presented and doctored, the members of parliament have all the resources and the authority to get these things. They can produce reports, first of all, study these things, sit down and study the problem and suggest solutions. They can call in all the experts. They have the authority to do that in their committees. Call in the experts, get their opinions, formulate them, and present it to the government. Not in a spirit of hostility at all, in a spirit of cooperation which says that both of us can work together for the country. I am sure that with all this bluster and all this name calling that has gone on in the last parliament, incidentally, the PRS reported that there was zero productivity in the last parliament session, which means the parliament members didn't care to do their work at all. So it is time for them, for parliament members on both sides, to get together and work out what we should do, work out the approach to all these sectors. It may need laws. It may need laws. All these sectors, it may need laws, because this is, after all, a society based on law. And therefore, these things have to be done that way, because you cannot leave it to government, because all that they could think of within the framework that they have is to give some doles and cash transfers and things like that. That is not a matter of something to be fixed like that. That's no fixing. This is so very fundamental to our life, our country. This is what I hope the parliamentarians would do, because who else can do this with all the resources at their command?